After you restart your machine, go to use case number 8. Use case number 8 basically has a project called Docker Compose MySQL. It consists of 2 projects. One is Ubuntu JDK 8, which is basically nothing but installing JDK 8 on Ubuntu, and I'll tell you why. And then it also has a Java project, and we'll go over this as well. But basically the goal of this exercise is to work on the Docker machine. So click on scripts.txt. So anything which says Docker machine, that's where you are associated to. Now note that this is going to be for the Windows and the Mac. So I have specified instructions on how to check this up on the Windows and on the Mac. The most important thing here is to be able to run PowerShell as an administrator. So click on the PowerShell, right click on the PowerShell, and then say run as administrator. And then go back to the use case, the path of the use case in Visual Studio Code, just to keep it all consistent. Just say copy path. So what I'm going to do is, as I said, the first thing to check out is the version of Docker machine. If you're having issues with the Docker machine, I highly recommend including the version number and the build. The second thing we're going to do is, as always, go back to the scripts.txt, and for Windows users, just copy this section and then paste it. As you can see, what I'm doing here is I'm creating a Docker machine with Hyper-V as the virtualization technology. And then I'm also assigning a virtual switch we created called VS1. So the VS1, the name is case sensitive, and it comes from the Hyper-V manager. So if you go into virtual switch manager, you will see VS-1. Just make sure that this is case sensitive. So the first Docker machine got created. Now I'm going to create the second Docker machine. So in order to do that, go back to Visual Studio Code and then go back to this particular section which says Windows, if you're using Windows, or if you're using the Mac, just say Mac. Now let's enlist all of the machines we've created. It took a while to create each machine, so please be patient. So the command to do that would be docker machine ls. As you can see, it enlists the name of the 2 virtual machines. I will get into this particular column a little later. It talks about the driverware which was used to create it. Now understand that VirtualBox is also another driver. So we started Hyper-VM 1, and I just wanted to show you I've actually purposely stopped Hyper-VM 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say docker machine start Hyper-VM 2. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a new IP host. And the command to do this would be docker machine start and then the name of the virtual machine, and docker machine stop and the name of the virtual machine. Now the Hyper-V VM machine 2 has also started. So if you look at Docker machine ls, you're going to see both the Hyper-V machines. Each of them have an IP address, as you can see, 189 and 187. So when I stopped it, this particular virtual machine was active. And let me get into it a little bit. So what we're going to do is we are going to run both the virtual machines, and we're going to host some containers in it, and then we're going to see the difference. So what I recommend doing is, if you go into the next section of this, you will see that you will be able to execute this command alone to get the IP addresses of both the virtual machines in case you need to use it for scripting. We also talked about the stopping and the starting of the Hyper-V virtual machines, so I'm not going to cover that once again. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the virtual machine 1 active. And the way to do it is you will execute docker machine env and the name of the virtual machine. And what I recommend doing is copying this as is. And if you've installed it in the default location, execute that. It's going to be the same instruction on the Mac. So the moment you run this, you're going to see a script pop up on the end. So execute that script. And this script is going to make the first machine active. So as you can see, Hyper-V VM1 is active right now. So if you see Docker images, there are no images. Well, there is Nginx installed because I installed it first, but you can basically run the Nginx image. I'm just going to use -p. And as you can see, it created a running host. Now there are 2 running hosts, 32771 and 32769. This one was created by me as a part of my experiments. And then this one is a new host. So the goal here is, if I hit these ports directly, it's not going to work. So localhost :32769 is not going to work. So is the case with 32771. So what I will need to do is I will need to provide it an IP address because it's running inside the virtual machine. So in this case, the IP address is 10.0.0.187. So I'm just going to do this and then replicate this and then execute this as well. So as you can see, there are 2 Nginx containers running on the same virtual machine. So as we go into the picture, we took a look at the microservices picture during the start of this section. And if you see that, I was hoping to start up 1 Java container and 1 MySQL container. So in this case, the example basically illustrates running 2 containers on the second one. On the first one. So if I want to run the same thing on the second one, I'm just going to do docker machine env Hyper-V VM2, and then I'm just going to execute this as is. Now note that Hyper-V VM2 should be in the started state, or it should be in the running state. And if I go into docker machine ls right now, as you can see, the second one here is active. So if I look at Docker images, you see that there is 1 Nginx version. As you can see, there's something which exited a few minutes ago. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say docker start 485, which is basically the name of the container ID. And then it says it's unable to use the certificate. So what I'm going to do is, it actually got started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this particular machine name, which is the same IP address, a different IP address, but the last digit is 189, and then I'm going to do 32769. So this is how Docker machines work. So long story short, they're basically virtual machines running inside the host machine, and you can host microservices inside of it. So the next lecture series is going to cover using Docker Compose along with Docker machine. So let's go take a look at that. I hope you have a good understanding of Docker machine right now. So in short, just to summarize, we covered how to create the virtual machines, which is a prerequisite for Windows, but for the Mac, you just use VirtualBox. You can find out how to obtain the IPs of the virtual machines. You can list the virtual machines using the following command. You will be able to make one of the machines active and then install images on top of it. If you execute this, you will get something similar to this if you've used the default installation. And then you can also start and stop these machines. If you want to remove a machine, again, this is a very good thing to be aware of. What I recommend doing is you need to stop the machine and then you can use remove-force, or you can go into the Hyper-V manager and basically right click on this machine and then say turn off or shut down, and then you can use the rm-f command to remove the machine altogether from your system. All right, so that's basically a high-level summary of whatever we discussed right now. Thank you for watching this lecture, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.